rightly or wrongly, I've always been quite goal-driven. I've always been that way. I think as an athlete, you're always hungry for more or different, and more can be different, or more can be more of what you've already had. And I think on a whole, I like challenges and setting myself hard, attainable challenges, and that drives me to get up and give me something, or give it something more. What was the plan? So I wanted to put together a training block that I felt proud of, that I went into the race not hurt or injured or overtrained, but when I felt confident in that I could, reach my potential, if the day gave us what we kind of hoped for. And so the plan was my plan, and I spent quite a lot of time putting it together, and Matt and I kind of towed back and fro with it, and we obviously alter it weekly depending on how I'm feeling, and but yeah, the plan was the plan, and I think in that respect I trained really well, and I think it's the best I've been in a large prep, and I went into the race not carrying any niggles, which for the volume that I did and the efforts that I did, I think was credit to the journey of learning I've been on about my body, and putting together 9 or 10 weeks of really solid, consistent work. As we know, people think you get fit from training, but you actually get fit from recovering. And obviously, so you want an appropriate load, counterbalance with an appropriate rest for adaptation. So, one thing I thought as I've got a little bit older, I just haven't necessarily recovered as well from bigger, harder sessions, and I think you've just got to face that a wee bit and be honest with yourself. And I felt like I needed a day between hard sessions and long ones, whereas in the past we might have done a workout on a Saturday and a long run on the Sunday. And I don't know if that's right for everybody, but I did feel like for me I could run a little harder in the sessions and run a little longer in the long runs. And did that mean that it was a success? I think I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed it more than I would have, and I wasn't as stiff and sore. And I think Katie had vouched for the fact that I probably was a little more at home when I was at home, and I wasn't so tired all the time. So, hey, is it for everyone? I'm not sure. It was difficult with work. I'll be honest, up front with that. Like, it was pretty difficult to run 3 hours and then come to work on a Wednesday or Friday. It's pretty weird. But, I just probably next time I might get a little bit more clever with my days off and working around those bigger runs during the week, and maybe, switching some days around. But and I'm quite proud of it, because I think I had to really sort of look inward and question, why I was doing something, and are you just doing something because it's what you've always done? And so I kind of like, I guess I can't remember exactly who I was talking to, but just around like getting a little bit older and taking longer to recover. And so part of that was, trying to put days in between hard days and long days. And so the 8-day cycle was basically that. So you have a day of jogging, whether that's a single or a double, just an easy jog either end of the day, followed by the next day being a long run, followed by another day that's an easy day, single or double, followed by a workout, followed by an easy day, followed by a long run, followed by a workout. So you're always giving yourself a day of recovery in between the two stressful days. And there was the odd occasion where, for instance, after we did that 5x5K, I took 2 easy days. So, a program's only as good as you're kind of recovering or how you're feeling. So we did have room to move and be sensible. So I needed 2 days of easy jogging, one single day and then a double day I think that must have been Sunday, Monday, and then I went back to a longer run. But I think with that too, like that run doubled as a 40k run with 29k with a work in it. So that's a long run and a workout. So of course you're going to need 2 days. in between. So there's still some sensibility there, but I think in general, breaking things up did help me feel better and enjoy my training more, which, hey, I think, you can't really control lots of what will happen, and we'll talk about that on race day, but if you've enjoyed how you've done it, then that's a win. Yeah. I did a lot more mobility work. I split my gym into 2 sessions, so I didn't do 2 gym sessions. I did 1 gym session split over 2 more often than not, just in those big high load weeks, particularly in the middle of the training block, just because I was finding I was getting a little bit tired. And then I really concentrated on sleep. So I got quite hyper fixated on sleep and understanding like my body's patterns, what made me feel good and what maybe didn't feel good around sleep time, sleep hygiene, sleep health, and really focusing on I guess that wind down time, maximizing deep sleep and REM sleep recovery, and then understanding my chronotype and when I needed to be asleep and when I needed to be awake to maximize the adaptation that I was after. So, and I really enjoyed that. It could be ever so slightly frustrating because you're not always in control of your sleep, but I really did enjoy. So I worked on that quite a lot. Read Matthew Walker's book and then a couple of PhDs, and I'm that guy. Worked with Jamie on some supplementation to, I guess, help with my slightly anxious personality. To maximize that time. So they're probably the 3 things that I did differently or changed, focused on maybe. Yeah. So we did that. We did a bit of a pyramid workout on the Saturday. Sunday I did 80 minutes, 90 minutes of running, just easy. Monday I decided that I'd run a double actually to keep some familiarity to the week. So I didn't want to shut down completely. And I definitely wasn't running 60-minute doubles. They were smaller doubles, sort of 35, 40 minutes kind of runs. Tuesday was travel day, so just an easy hour in the morning. And then we flew into GC on Tuesday night. Plane was a bit delayed, which is a little bit annoying. So we didn't actually get into accommodation until about 9 p.m, which is quite late New Zealand time. And we woke up Wednesday, my HRV, heart rate variability, was quite low and the resting heart rate was a wee bit high. So we were going to do some tempo work Wednesday morning, but I made the decision that with Matt that I would push that out a day, just because I didn't want to have an immune system that might have been crashing and then trying to add another stress. So I figured just a nice jog, shake out, run towards the course, and we made the right call because I felt like trash jogging that morning. Disrupted sleep, late to bed, all that kind of stuff. So was that? There was Wednesday, and so Thursday we did a little 4K marathon effort, which I felt really good. That's when I realized how important the nutrition was going to be, and particularly the hydration, because I was sweating after 12 minutes, which Andy and I did talk about while we were doing it, and we did talk about it regularly for the next 48 hours. Obviously that probably turned out to be a bigger problem than I thought it was going to be, but we kind of thought we'd made a plan for that. Friday easy 50 minutes, and then Saturday half an hour. So yeah, but I mean it's a pretty basic week. Some could argue I could run a little bit more, some could argue I run a bit less. I kind of trusted what we were doing and felt good with where we were at and how my body was feeling, and nothing was too stiff, so that's a pretty good sign that I'm doing enough, and nothing sore, which is a pretty good sign I'm not doing too much. Yeah, I mean it's pretty basic. You just need fuel, right? And you don't want to feel hungry. To be honest, it's not too dissimilar from my normal diet. The training comes down a wee bit, so you're gonna do some glycogen stores are gonna come up anyway. But definitely, focus probably more on fuel than anything else in those last 3 days, and drinking a few calories, and just trying to make sure you're fully topped up, ready to rock and roll. Just trying to not be hungry and not feel hungry, I guess, because it can cause a bit of anxiety too when you get towards race day. What's challenging is because we live at the bottom of the world, we don't often get a lot of experiences to kind of call upon. So I was a little bit concerned after we'd done that Thursday about how much I sweat in 12 minutes. Knowing, I guess there's a limit to how much you can take on, right? Like running at that effort. And I thought about it, and when we started to put our bottles together, I was using Precision 1500, the isotonic drink, so the sort of the lower carb to salt ratio, and I was going to have gels to make up for the carb. And I was really happy that I made the decision to put 300 mils in each bottle, knowing that I could have a little bit more if I wanted to. But in hindsight, that might have meant that I wasn't sure exactly how much I was having. And that was my call. I didn't talk to anyone about that. I just made that call that that's what I was going to do. And in hindsight, do I remember ever drinking a whole one of those? I don't know. Like, I'd probably say not. And so when you only fill a bottle with 125 mil or 150 mil, you know when you're at the end of it. And you've taken on that whole 150 mil. And like, I think I was probably losing a couple of kilos an hour with the water and probably only taking on, 800 mil. And so the equation there is not great. Could I have taken any more liquid on? Like, I felt really full, and we can talk about the race whenever you like. But, I made those calls, and I felt like we had a really solid plan around timings and gels and bottles, and given what I thought the weather was going to do, how I thought I was going to run. And I guess the experience that I had. So I didn't look at my Aura Ring data of the day before and the morning of until later. So I didn't want to have any preconceived ideas in my mind about how I was feeling. I just wanted to feel how I felt. So I'm quite an anxious person anyway, and when I don't train a lot, I'm even more anxious. And so when I look back across the HRV data and the resting heart rate data, I was very low HRV and very high heart rate on the Saturday from about 1 o'clock and through till 3 a.m. when we got up that morning. So some work-ons there for me around maybe some mindfulness stuff, some more meditation, taking myself off, and probably having that afternoon nap, I think, which all led into a little bit of anxiety race day morning. And anxiety is normal, and I think you need a certain amount of like anxiety arousal to get up for a race. Like, you're going to put yourself through hell and back. Unfortunately, when we got to the elite hotel, the vans were running late, and they sort of told us, hey, I think you guys would be better off getting on the tram, which is not the end of the world, but I don't think standing up for half an hour before warming up for a marathon is like ideal. Prep. I'd like to say that it didn't affect me too mentally, but it did affect me time-wise. So I was expecting to get down to the elite call room at about 5, knowing that I wanted to take myself off for 15 minutes, do some meditation. I like to go and lie on my back somewhere and just be there and hear things and feel things, and I didn't get an opportunity to do that because we didn't get there till 20 past. So by the time I put my training shoes on and started to warm up, I was feeling a little bit rushed. And then obviously the start line is about 500 metres away from that area, so we had to do a bit of cross-country running to sort of get there. And I still got my stride out and stuff, but I forgot my bottle with me, so I didn't have those last drinks and stuff. So again, that's great learning, and those things are somewhat out of our control. You place faith in a system, and like, it's a great system. I'm not having to go out the race or anything, but that did mean that. And so, standing on the start line, I probably hadn't done everything in that last hour that I maybe would have liked to have done to put myself in a position. So you're standing on the start line with 15,000 people doing some deep breathing, trying to bring yourself back into, and to holy hell, I'm going to run a marathon that's going to hurt. I'm okay with that, and yeah, working through that. So I think the only way I could measure it was like with tension, and I didn't let it annoy me. I'd come into that race with that sort of fair enough mentality, like just shrug it off. You can't change it. I can't call an Uber. I can't get there any other way. I don't want to get angry about it or frustrated. That's not going to help. I mean, would getting the van have meant that I got another 10 minutes, and would that have helped what happened? What happened was physiological. I don't think it was mental. Will I take away from that I might not do it that way again? Yes. Like, is it a pretty cruel way to learn that lesson? Probably. Would I have preferred to learn it 9 weeks ago? Yes. But like that's sport, right? Like you have to be adaptive, and I do credit myself in being quite adaptable and rolling with what we've got, as we'll find out as we unpack the next 42K. But things happen, and you've got choices, right? You've got doors to walk through, and you've got to choose which one you're going to walk through, and I chose the one of path of least resistance and get on the tram. Oh, we're going to run 42.2K or 42.195K. I had a plan, and we talked about that plan. You and I talked about it, Matt and I talked about it, Andy and I talked about it, and the plan was to go out with that 2:15 group and try and run faster than I've ever run before. And I was going to stick to that. Perhaps once we realised that it was going to be 17 or 16 degrees on the start line and finish with 21 or 22 degrees, boots on the ground coach, he might have suggested, hey, let's not do that. But I didn't come there to run 220, and no disrespect, obviously I ran 223, but no disrespect to someone who did come to run 220. I wanted to come there and see if I could run faster than what I had, and I wanted to give myself an opportunity to do that. So I had to go through points in the race at certain paces to give it a go. And I lived on especially towards halfway and 3/4 way, I lived on the other side of that, so the slightly slower end. But the plan was to go out with that group, and it was quite windy. You'll appreciate how windy it was heading south, being there, and so I made the decision that that second group, which was supposed to be a 2:15 group, that I was going to go on the back of that, and I'm not sure if they had another conversation or they were just feeling good that day. They're going to be pushing the back by some of the guys slightly faster than me, but we did set off quite quick, and I think we ran through that first 5K in about 15:40, which is 309s, 308s, so which is too fast for me to run a marathon. Through the 10K in 31:40, which was about 30 seconds quicker than probably was optimal for me, but I felt like I made that in-game decision that the wind was going to cost me more than the pace at the back of the group. And I don't regret that decision. I think it's probably easy to beat yourself up and say, what could you and couldn't you have done? But, I think the experience of running in the group and having someone dictate that pace and hang tough and give yourself an opportunity, I was happy to do that and be there. And so maybe, that was just a wee bit quick for me to... But I had thought that once we hit the tailwind, when we turned around, that I might be able to recover a wee bit and still keep rolling and feel positive about it. And I got all my bottles. I was happy with that. I didn't have to stop. I was taking my gels. I felt in control, and I was talking, and I was... my mind was good, and I felt in control of my decisions and what I was and the lines I was taking and where I was in the group, and they sped up a wee bit, and I just sort of said, no, I'm happy here, and then I catch back on again and keep it consistent. So at that 18K mark, I'd made the decision that I'd probably just pull it back slightly. So we were through 15K real quick, like sub 2:13 quick. And hey, I think everyone would love to think they were a 2:12 guy, but I'd need a lot of things to line up to run that, and I knew that the humidity and the wind had cost me. Not that I was letting it affect how I was feeling, but I just knew this is going to come back somewhere. I was hoping it was going to come back in the last 500 meters, but it didn't, and so I decided at 18K I was going to let them go. The tailwind I was happy with, and then I think I also knew the group was so big that there were a few guys in there that probably weren't 2:13 guys like me or 2:12 guys, and that I'd probably be able to pick them off. And so I made those decisions, and I did start picking off a few who fell off the back, and I rolled through halfway in 107.20 or 107.15 or something. And I felt really good about that. I was like, that's 2:14.30. I've made some good decisions to get myself here. I've given myself a few Ks worth of rest. I don't mind being on my own, and I didn't actually mind being on my own at that point because I could just relax and run me. I wasn't being dictated to by someone else's stride length or breathing patterns, and so I'd like to say I'm a pretty good time trialer, and I ran that 20 to 25 really well. I ran that just under 3:10s with a tailwind, and I wasn't looking at my watch. I was just going off effort, and then the 25 to 30 wasn't too bad either. That was still like 311s, I think, 312s. So, and that was sort of a little uphill actually to that point. So, and then we came through that 30k mark, and I mean, Gold Coast is kind of cruel in that you pass that start finish line right at 32k. It's pretty savage, man. And I'd passed some guys who had pulled out and were walking or sitting on the side of the road, and we came out of that 31k mark, and the sun just hit, and then I knew that I was in trouble. Yeah, I don't think it was anyone's fault that what happened. It gets to 21 degrees, and I just fell apart. I don't know. Yeah. The sky rises definitely gave me a false sense of what the weather was actually doing, and how hot it actually was. And when we came out of that sheltered area, mate, everything went, and it happened so quickly. It was forearms, it was biceps, it was traps, it was the back of my neck. They were the first things to go with cramp, and I'd pre-thought cramp might be a problem, so I had some cramp fix in my back pocket. The cramp was so bad, my hand cramped getting it out of my back zip pocket, and so I had to run another 500 to make the cramp in my hand go away, so that I could get the thing out of my pocket, which is the irony, and that's absolutely fantastic, and I'm definitely aware of that. But so I had that, and that actually gave me another sort of 10 minutes. I knew I was probably in a more trouble than I thought when I moved slightly to the left to go to my drink bottle and got cramp in my adductors. And then I went, oh yeah, okay. I would prefer them to not be doing that this far out.
What K was that?
Oh, 32 and a half. Yeah. So I got a long way. I got 10k to go, right? But I think the positive for me is I was still on to run a PB until 35, 36k. And so it's really easy to look at the whole of it, and I'll go back to what happened in the 32, 42k, but it's really easy to look at the whole thing as not what you wanted. But as a percentage, you ran like 85, 90% of this thing to your capacity, probably against a few odds. And that can take 48 hours to come to that conclusion. And like, if there's one piece of advice I could give people is, everyone's like, oh, don't feel upset about it. You're like, that, be upset, be off, but put a time limit on it. So you're allowed to be upset when something doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. But you also have to say, after 48 hours, I'm going to let that go, and then move through that, and then start planning or coming up or thinking about it and writing down what you're going to do next time. And I think that's really important. So I ran 35, 36k at PB pace, and which is really close to being done. It's not, but it was really close to being done. And so adductors started cramping. I got actually a twist top bottle, which really helped. The turnaround at 37 and a half, I passed a wheelchair, and her cyclist had a joke with him like, this sucks, something like that, and then sort of thought, I sort of passed, and then Chrissy was, I don't know, about a minute back, and I thought, well, he'll come and get me eventually. That'd be nice just to have someone run past me and just to get a bit of energy, and maybe I'll be able to latch on the back, and he might be able to pull me through a wee bit. And then I could feel the attachments of my big toe tendons cramping in my calf. And so every time I pushed off, it felt like neurologically. And afterwards, I've talked to people far smarter than me. The cramps I were having were basically my central nervous system shutting me down, trying to say, hey, we're actually in danger of hurting ourselves. You should probably stop. So I was trying to find ways to limit more damage, essentially. And I'm just a stubborn old bastard, so I wasn't going to. At 40k, I had a full two hamstrings, 2 quads lock up. Which, honestly, it was just the moment where you're like, this sucks. But at the same time, you're like, and I think one thing for me is I had to finish. And because, for me personally, I didn't want to open that door of not finishing. And because I think that gives you an opportunity next time to not finish. And that's no disrespect to people who didn't finish on the day for various reasons. But for me in that moment, it was hard and it sucked. And it wasn't going how I wanted it to go. And I was upset about that. But I never didn't want to cross the finish line just to put a full stop on all the prep that we'd done, the people that have supported me, the effort that we'd put in. And that for me, that crossing the finish line kind of closed the book on that. Full quad, full hamstring cramp. I could do nothing but walk. And that's really humbling, I think, like, because you have exposed your body to enough trauma where you have to walk. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I don't know if I should be proud of that, but I am in a way that I just wasn't going to give in. And so my thought wasn't to sit on the side of the road and have a sulk. It was, well, we'll walk there. We'll go forwards. The drink station's up 500 meters up the thing and we'll get there. So I started to walk. And then that was after about a minute and a half or 2 minutes of getting my hamstring working so I could walk. So I had a joke with the guy at 40K and then walked up to the drink station at 40 and a half, and it must have been like a league team or a rugby team and just a couple of the boys, and the guy goes, "Geez, bro, you look like shit." Oh, thanks, man. I feel like shit. And I think that humour was really good at that point because it wasn't going the way I wanted it, and it was clearly I was going to even struggle to make it to the finish line. So I had a couple of bottles of water and put some over myself, and then he said, "No, do you want the amber?" And I said, "No, mate, I've only got 4 laps to the track. I'll get there." And so I set off, set off from there, thinking just, hey, get to the finish line. And I think in that moment it's easy to think, am I embarrassed by my performance? This is not what I wanted. Do you have some shame on not doing what you set out to do? All those, there's a lot of negative thoughts and I guess letting them come and go and just saying, I'm going to finish the marathon. That's a long way, and I ran my guts out. And I tried really hard. And I think if one thing I'd like to think people thought about me as an athlete, whether you like me or not, is like I tried really hard and I gave it a really good go, and that was important for me to uphold that value for me. Was I guess if you're lying on your deathbed and what did you want people to think about you, and you say, well, I wanted people to think that I gave it my all and I tried really hard and I gave what I had on the day. And as you can attest, Mack, when I crossed the finish line, I probably wasn't in a great state, but sport's not always a fairy tale, and no matter how well you prepare or think you have, there are factors outside of your control that mean that you've got to take a step sideways and find a way. Honestly, I don't remember. I'd lost a little bit of peripheral. I was a bit furry out, and I had the imaginary flies in my face. So I remember thinking, I'm really glad that I'm there. And I was looking forward to seeing yourself and Andy and I guess some familiar faces. Not necessarily for consoling, but just get there. In that moment, I probably hadn't really reflected on the enormity of everything we'd done in the last sort of 10 or 12 weeks. I probably did have quite a few negative thoughts, not doing what I wanted to do, and they'd probably built it a wee bit over that last K. I think you've put so much effort in and you want something so badly, and then it doesn't come out how you want. It's only human to think, what if? Or be disappointed or angry or frustrated. So I tried to just acknowledge those thoughts and move through them. But, they probably did. There was a bit of that, like, damn. That was probably damn. I think probably not like an angry damn, just a bit almost like a sad damn. I let one slip. Let an opportunity slip. That didn't last for very long. But if I'm being honest, you probably that minute before the finish line and then that 15, 20 minutes after was just a feeling of, damn, that opportunity's gone. Not to say the whole opportunity was lost, because I'm not saying that. Like, we trained really well, and I raced amazingly for 2 hours. But yeah.
How do you feel?
That's a great question. And I reckon my answer would have been different every day for the last 2 weeks. And that's the God honest truth. Like you go through. It's a cliche thing to say, but you go through that like emotional roller coaster and your brain does really funny things because it hides pain after the pain's finished. But it also brings pain up. So in the first instance, you might have been thinking about, oh, that time I sacrificed away from my family and I didn't do what I wanted to do. And that hits you like, right, boom, sucker punch, or the extra work the staff did in the store to keep the thing going while I was training really hard, boom, it hits you in this. Or all the work that we did together and trying to bring the story to life and I wanted a positive result for that, bang, that knocks you in the guts. So you go through this ebbs and flows of that, and then it's only natural to sort of shift on like, what do I do next, or do I want to do it again? Like I've retired about 6 times in my own brain in the last 7 days, like, and that sounds dramatic, but like, do I want to put myself and the people that I really care about through that again to try again? And the answer is yes, but well, I want to. I don't know about them. But they are. So am I like hungry to achieve something? Definitely, 100%. I'm not finished running a marathon and seeing what the limit is. And if I've already reached the limit and I don't get better, I'm okay with that too. But I don't want to think that it is yet. Like I think what it taught me the most is the environments that I need to perform in and reflect on when I've had really good races, and whether that's environmental or mentally. The races that I've really performed well in or felt positive about may have been in slightly cooler climates. And I look across all my PBs; they're all run in less than 10 degrees. So maybe that's just the type of athlete I am, and I wouldn't have found that out without that experience. So I'd rather have done that in the Gold Coast and fly to San Diego. Something, it's a mile away, and so I think you've got to take that, and those things are all positive stuff to think about and reflect on and be okay with, sit with, and then when you choose your next opportunity, you factor those things into what that looks like and how you might change your preparation, and which I've started to do. Think about those things. What can I change? Rightly or wrongly, I've always been quite goal driven, and those goals have changed like over the last 15 years. The first one is, can I win my first national title? Give it a go. Achieve that. Can you run 65 minutes for a half? Yep. Can I run 64 minutes for a half? Yep. Can I run nearly 63 minutes for a half? Yep. So I've always been that way, which does expose you to large amounts of vulnerability because they're very outcome focused. And some people would say, don't be too outcome focused. Like, run the K you're in, right? That's our age old saying. I think as an athlete, you're always hungry for more or different, and more can be different, or more can be more of what you've already had. And I think on a whole, I like challenges and setting myself hard, attainable challenges, and that drives me to get up and give me something, or give it something more. The mindset I went into this race with was, whatever the outcome was, I was going to give my body everything it needed to recover really well, so that when I was ready to go again, I could give it another really good go. And I think that's important, is sometimes when things don't go well for ourselves, no matter what it is, we beat ourselves up, and then our first instance is to just thrash ourselves. And what certainly is mine, and I can't speak for everybody, but what I was sort of focused on was saying, I've run a marathon, it was hard. I need to give myself as much time as I need mentally, emotionally, and physically to be ready to go again. So my priority for the next 4 weeks is doing what I want. So the last 2 Thursdays with my daughter's football training, running around with the kids playing football, not worrying about my evening run or the session I had the next day, and trying to have some balance there. Then after that, one thing I wanted to make sure of is the next marathon I ran wasn't one that had a lot of expectation, because I don't think you want to bounce from expectation to expectation. Because if you have a couple of expectations that don't meet that expectation, then the thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you end up in a situation where there's just a lot of internal pressure. So I've had a chat to Matt and one of my other mentors about running Auckland Marathon as a good competition with some mates and enjoying that race for what it is, not trying to go out and run a time, not even necessarily trying to go out and win, but just going out, going through my processes, having a good experience with your friends, having a laugh and a beer afterwards, and then resetting after that, rather than you bouncing to an Osaka or a Hamburg or straight after this with that memory in there. And I think that's great advice. Like, you want to still make sure you find joy in what you're doing. Otherwise, the pressure just gets a bit much, and I don't think you have a very good experience. Well, I don't think I would. And just enjoy some local stuff, I think. Eventually, you need to have a rest. So you'll know you know this, but I'm so regimented and disciplined, and I think you got to give yourself a break every now and again, so that you can recommit to something full go. So I'm looking forward. I've got a couple of new mental skills coach. I'm going to start working with a new S&C. So adding a few new people to the team, and a few adjustments there, and just look to make some more adaptations and have some fun and learn a bit more, and eat some more rice and chicken. I think for me, writing down the parts of training that I love doing and emphasising those. So I love tempoing across the Port Hills. Great Auckland Marathon prep. Do that. Doing some long runs, somewhere different. Maybe not doing laps of South Higley, where it's not necessary, But I think what I'll do, and I haven't done this yet, and I'll probably wait another 2 weeks before I, maybe August before I do it, is I'll write down the things that I feel like are going to bring me lots of enjoyment and training, and then that'll make the basis of how we move forwards into Auckland. Obviously, there's some things you have to do that you might not want to do, but that's okay too. And then I hope, working with my new mental skills coach and the new strength and conditioning guy, just to mix up some bits and pieces, will just create a bit more, fun and difference and excitement, and mix that up and not do the same thing again, because I think that can lead to a bit of stagnancy as well. I'll keep the 8-day cycle, no question about that. I am way more resilient than I thought I was. Like, I'm nowhere near the potential I think that I can be, because of what I managed to achieve in those 12 weeks. And that's not to say I thought I was overtrained, because I didn't think I did anything too big. But I think what I managed to do in that time was really good, and it taught me that if I'm structured enough, disciplined enough, fueled enough, and have the desire, I can do some pretty cool things. And I got an amazing group of people around me to help me do those things, 100%. Like, everybody enabled that to happen. It's pretty cool.